Stages in fighting games such as Street Fighter, Tekken, King of Fighters aren't really something you think about too much, unless it's not tournament legal, such as some stages in Street Fighter V, or in games such as Virtua Fighter and Soul Calibur, if they have ringouts or not. But then there's platform fighters, or if you really want to get technical, 2D arena fighters, and they have quite a few interesting stages in them. Like in Smash Brothers, you have stuff like Great Game Offensive, KO Stadium, Brent Stardust. They are very different from the normal fighting game stages. Whether or not they're good is up to the person. But you read the title, I'm not going to be talking about Smash Brothers, I'm going to be talking about PlayStation All-Stars. I like this game and I want to make content on it. That's my reason. And of course, these rankings are all my own opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine. Considering I don't think any of these stages are really all that bad, even some of the lower ones on this list, I could really see anyone liking any of these stages. I am also no way a competitive player at all. I am definitely not good at the game despite really liking it. My footage of me playing Zeus is proof enough of that. I'm also not ranking the training stages and the boss and rival arenas because, while I don't think those are bad stages, A, you can't select the boss arena normal play, and B, there's not really that much to the training stages and rival arena, unlike just about every other stage in the game. And there's also the fact that they're not based on any existing franchise. I really don't think it's fair comparing them. This also isn't going to be a breakdown of all the Easter eggs and background elements. That's what you watch Bob Barrett's PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale history videos for, which I'll link the playlist for in the description. This is just meant to be my opinion, and I don't really have any special criteria for this either, so let's start this already.
Sly! Do you read me?
For the bottom and number 16 spot, we have the Sly Cooper stage, and where else but Paris. This stage for some reason takes from the intro level of the very first game. It's a weird choice, but okay. And the layout is kind of barren. Not much happens here, and it's just kind of okay. The sign on the left being able to electrocute you is a neat hazard, but other than that, there's just literally nothing going on here aside from the fighting. The mashup doesn't really do it for me either, despite being a really big Little Big Planet fan. Is it neat seeing the Negativitron? Yeah, but he's kind of just an annoyance more than anything, and taking the platforms away besides one just really amplifies the problem I have that I literally just talked about. His other attacks like the lasers and slamming down the ground are just or whatever. That's kind of how I view the stage in general. It's just not a horrible start to the list, but not really all that good of a start either.
Wait a minute. I hate golf.
Now we move on to Sandor Village, the Jack and Daxter stage. It's certainly here, and that's fine. There's not really much to this stage, and it kind of suffers from the same problem as Paris, where there's not much to do, but it's super big. The layout is definitely better, it has much more going on, even if there is sometimes those points of dead air, and that's really not something you want in a fighting game. As for the mashup with Hot Shots Golf or Everybody's Golf if you live in literally anywhere but the US, it's fine. It doesn't change too much, and the hazard it introduces is just okay, along with the Lurker Shark that the stage already had. It's just The nice shot Easter egg when you get 3 KOs at the same time is really fun though. It's definitely just okay, and that's pretty much all I got.
It goes really well with my giant robot. Wait, what?
Now here's a stage without a character to go with it. Kinda. This is based on the PSP game Loco Roco. And it's alright. It's definitely not bad and better than the two below it, but it's still not a heavy hitter either. The layout, it's weird. It changes a whole lot, and it's kind of insane. Whether or not that's accurate to the actual games is up to the local Roku fans. I haven't played those yet, but I think it's just fine. If it's a 1v1 though, it's definitely much more annoying to play on. This is definitely a 4-player kind of stage. The mashup with the Metal Gear Ray is fun though. It's our Metal Gear Rising joke here. It adds a stage hazard that isn't really all that intrusive, and the exclamation point being there is great, but this is just kind of an okay stage. Not bad, but not up with the big boys.
Now, would you kindly find a crowbar or something?
Now we're on to the Bioshock Infinite stage, Columbia, and I think it's actually fairly solid. It's not too special though, it's just kind of okay for both 1v1 and 4-player matches. It doesn't really change that much compared to the others though. It also doesn't actually have a hazard until the mashup. Speaking of which, it's also just okay. It all faces back from the PS3 Twisted Metal game. It's a neat idea, and the way the background changes a lot is pretty cool, but the hazard itself is really nothing to write home about. Same with the stage itself, to be honest. There's not much to say here, but it's still a fine stage, and I definitely like playing on it sometimes.
A weapon.
to surpass Metal Gear.
Now for the paper-thin stage from Parappa the Rapper, Dojo. This is basically the battlefield for PlayStation All-Stars, and I think it's alright. Not great though. It's way too small for 4 players, but it's also not that bad for 1v1s. And the background is pretty neat looking and surprisingly accurate from what I can tell. The way it changes is just fine though. It's nice to see the town, but that's kind of it. Then the mashup happens and suddenly the Mauler from Killzone comes in and starts blasting. The hazard is just kinda but I love how at the end of the time match, Chop messes around and grows to a big boy and then either kicks or punches it to take it out. That's just so funny to me. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Just like Columbia, I really don't got a whole lot. And now we have the DLC stage, The Graveyard from Medieval, released with a second pair of characters, Zeus and Isaac Clarke. And for some reason it's the only stage without a hazard. It's interesting, but I also can't really figure out why myself. The layout is okay, the slight slant I don't get, and that's pretty much all there is until the mashup, which just adds 2 higher platforms. The gargoyle throwing insults at specific fighters is pretty cool though, even if not every character has them. As for the stage's mashup, it's actually the PS3 indie game, The Unfinished Swan, and it's actually a really cool pull. All it really adds is just a couple of things from the game to the background though. The effect you see while it happens is pretty cool, but that's it. There's really not much to the stage, and it's not bad, but it's just kind of a bit barren. And I think we're out of the realm of I don't have much to say about the stage kind of stuff. So, next stage. Seems like all the fighters have died, and I guess Dan is just dead again because Hades from the God of War series is up next. And I think this is a really good quality check stage. Basically saying, are you really good and above Hades, or are you just kinda and below Hades? So it only goes up from here. Well, of course it is, it's a ranking video. To start with, I think the layout is just big enough to not be too empty, but enough to where it doesn't feel super chaotic with 4 players like Dojo. And the platforms at the end keep it from just being flat, which is nice. As for the stage hazard with Hades, it's just kind of annoying. The mashup is alright. It's nice to see Panopon, but the new hazard, while it's an improvement from Hades, is still not great. Not bad, but not really that good. And while I don't have too much to say on looks, the fact that the background is just a big PNG is pretty funny to me. Overall, it's a good fun stage, but not too special. Now here's the first DLC stage that released with Cad Nemet, Fearless from Heavenly Sword, the game that Nariko's from. Starting with the first arena, it's alright, there's no extra platforms you can jump around on, but it's not too big to where it feels empty. Seeing the soldiers in the background is cool too, then the mashup with Wipeout happens and starts crumbling, making the fighters fall down to the lower area, and we move to the second arena. This is definitely better than the first half. Platforms are nicely placed, the jars are neat ways to get more AP, and the racetrack acting as a hazard you can be knocked into is not that intrusive, but still neat. The main background Easter eggs are really cool too. Kai appearing in the background if Nariko wasn't picked, the AG racers on the track, the racers appearing as time trial ghosts if hazards are turned off. It's a fairly packed stage, and I'd say it's up there, just for all the little details. The layout being good definitely helped to get it this high. Our stage repping the Uncharted series is Stowaways, and this is a really good stage. The way it starts out with you in the plane, then it opens up is such a cool idea, and just like Uncharted 3. And after it opens up, you're now platforming cargo that's hanging out of the plane, which again, is just like Uncharted 3. The mashup transition is super smooth as well, with Columbia just being in the background while enemies from Bioshock Infinite pop up like Songbird, a Handyman, and the box Populi? I don't know. I love how well the Bioshock elements mix with the Uncharted elements to make something surprisingly cohesive. That's pretty much all I got, it's just very well done. And that's good. Next stage.
Go back, I want to be monkey.
The Resident Killzone stage, Evasion, is pretty dang good. Starts out on the ISA intruders, and then you drop down to the planet's surface. And the layouts are pretty neat, the hazards aren't too intrusive as well. And the way the platforms change is really cool. It feels good to move around on, it doesn't get in the way like Paris. As for the mashup with Ape Escape, there's really not much to say. The hazard introduces is just okay, but the amount of new details it introduces is nice. Like the final stage of the first game being up in the sky, the big monkey mech being from a Japanese-only game, it's a pretty interesting pick. And with another later stage, you can definitely tell someone on the team was a huge Ape Escape fan. Not really much to say here, it's just a good stage.
So open the blinds and maybe we're gonna see some stars out today.
Time for a trip to San Francisco, as this is a Resistance stage. The other stage was a character representing the series. And I really like it. It's got a good layout, the little details are cool, the stage changing as it gets bombed is really cool, and it just works very well. Both are 1v1s and 4-player matches. It probably has the best stage intro as well. Talking about the mashup now, first off, great choice for picking Ratchet and Clank, as both are made by Insomniac. It's pretty nice to see Dr. Nefarious in here. The space station from A Crack in Time being in the background is a really nice touch too. The hypersonic brainwave scrambler is okay as a hazard, but mostly just annoying. You know, hazards being just kind of annoying is kind of a trend of this game since there isn't normal KOs. But I still like the stage as a whole. I definitely agree that's one of the best.
Multiple heads. Of course.
Now for the actual Ratchet and Clank stage, we have Kerwin's Metropolis. And as a Ratchet fan, I think it's pretty solid. And for someone who played Duels of Destruction first and has it as his favorite because of nostalgia, it's nice to see this game represented in that way too. But it has appeared in earlier games, so that's also good. The layout is also fairly interesting. It's not too big, but not too small that it feels just fine in any game with any number of players. Sure, it definitely feels better with 4 players, but 1v1 isn't a bad option either. All the neat details and Captain Quark in the background are also great. Then the Hydra from God of War just shows up and stuff starts getting real. The sky gets dark, it starts attacking Quark, there's a bit of spikes that opens up. It's just chaotic, but in a real fun way to me. And that's pretty much the sentence I'd use to describe the stage. Not much else to it, it's just really fun.
Oh, don't mind me. You've just created a great big paradox that could potentially destroy the entire space-time continuum.
Hailing from the Ape Escape series, the time station is actually a location from the first game that only showed up in cutscenes, and they somehow turned it into a stage. For it being a location that you don't get to see much of, the recreation is surprisingly accurate, even down to the boxes that float when the time machine activates. There's even a screen with a shot made to look like one bit from the opening cutscene from the first game. The layout isn't too special, but having a simpler stage is not a bad thing. It's still fun to play on anyways, and it serves as a decent 4-player map. As for the mashup and Hazard, Resistance is a strange choice, but not really a bad one, I'd say. Not much of a problem to avoid the poison Satan spits. Yes, it's actually what the creature is named, but it's also not too intrusive. It's also really cool to see how there's a couple of other crossovers in the Time Machine mix too. Vermin from Twisted Metal, Harpies from God of War, and a Warhawk from, well, Warhawk. Overall, I'd say I'm confident on putting this up high on the list.
Just park the car. Would you like a little wheel? Hey, come on. Hey, watch it.
Calypso's Stadium of Death from the PS3 Twisted Metal game is the stage representing that series. And I love it personally. The layout is pretty dang good, the size of the arena is decent, and the amount of platforms help fill the blank space that stages like Paris and Sandora Village suffered from. And just like Time Station, it's a decent 4-player match stage. I'd say it also looks really good in general. Details like the lava pits and there being actual match of Twisted Metal going on while you fight is super cool. The mashup brings over Jack and Daxter stuff with Turrets and Baron Praxis in the background being really cool. And that's really all I have to say on that. But one thing I do want to mention before the segment ends is that I really like the music. I don't think any of the songs are outright bad, but this is my favorite out of the tracks. And as you can tell by this being number 3, you can also tell that this stage is one of my favorites in the game in general. Anyway, it's time to move on to number 2.
Who called quiz? Who called quiz? It's quiz time!
Okay, this stage being up so high is most likely because of bias, but this is my list, so the number 2 spot goes to Dreamscape, the Little Big Planet stage. Right off the bat, the intro is great. Showing the puppet during the default create mode background to the garden's background is so smart. Then the puppet starts building the stage like it's in create mode, and I start fanboying. The way the puppet makes the stage is also interesting. Some things aren't going to be the exact same every time. The bridge isn't always going to be on the left or right side. The wobbling platform also isn't going to be on the left or right side every time. And that's such a good way of showing the creativity aspect of LBP. Though weird looking water also isn't too much of a hassle to fight with. Then for the mashup, we have the series of quiz games owned by Sony, Buzz, and it's super good too. The way he and the puppet interact, and the trivia questions being an actual hazard where you have to answer right or you'll get hit with a giant pie, and the many different questions and animations you can see. It's just great, man. Plus the puppet deleting him at the end of the time match is so funny. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, a great representation of Little Big Planet, and that makes me so happy as a fan of the franchise. But my number 1 pick is still better in my opinion. So what is it?
Behold, junk.
And here's my pick for the best stage in the game, Alden's Tower from Infamous. First off, the stage itself looks great. Exactly how it looked in the game, and all the little details like the Sly saving calling card, the blast shard, the elevators being insane once Cole has to charge up to get Zeke to the top with him, and the ray sphere giving you AP, I just love it, man. Now I haven't even mentioned the layout, which I think all 3 are good. The first one isn't too special, but not bad at all, in my opinion. It is just a few platforms, but it works. The second one I'd definitely say is better. The billboards acting as hazards also work without being annoying in my opinion. And the last one is probably the best one. The couple of platforms it does have are just right enough for both 1v1s and 4-player matches to where they both feel balanced. And after all that, I still would mention the mashup. And it's honestly perfect in my opinion. Firstly, it's a reference to the fact that Sucker Punch made both Infamous and Sly Cooper. And second, I think the hazard is just right to where it isn't really that annoying, but it also isn't that bad. If you couldn't tell, I love the stage, and it's probably one of my favorites of all time. I definitely say I'm confident in putting this at the top of my list. And that's my ranking of all the PlayStation All-Star stages. Honestly, there wasn't much of a big reason for doing this video, I just wanted to do it. Especially since only one other person has done it, which I'll link in the description because this community is super small anyways. I just like this game and I want to talk about it. Whether or not it's making hypothetical movesets for characters, which yes, I do plan on doing. Or discussions like this one, I just like this game and this is how I'm talking about it. Also, I am recording this part of the outro at a much later date to say thank you all for 100 subscribers. I didn't know when I make it to this milestone, so to get here within only the second year of the channel is kind of amazing to me. I can't really thank you all enough for getting me to this point. I didn't really plan this to be 100 subscriber special, but considering the timing and I love this game, I thought it'd be appropriate, so here we go. So anyways, back to older recorded me. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.